bulk of the work in any bookkeeping system is recording the transactions that are coming and going from your business bank accounts. A quick side note, if you are still using your personal bank account for your business banking, then if possible, I do recommend setting up separate accounts that are just for your business. There are Canadian companies like Simplii Financial that have no fee and no minimum accounts that are pretty easy to set up. It just makes your life way easier if you keep your business and your personal banking separate, both for your bookkeeping and if you find yourself in this position of being audited by the CRA. With that being said, whether it's in its own dedicated business account or you're still using your personal one, you do need to track every dollar that comes and goes for your business. Let's start with deposits, and I say deposits rather than income because there could be money that comes into your account that is not a payment. It could be a refund for a business expense that you had paid. If you have a savings account to set aside money for paying your income tax or your sales tax, which I highly recommend, then you may have transferred money back into your main account if you had accidentally saved too much, or maybe you wanted to make the payment from your main account, so you move the money back in there. Both of those examples would show money coming into your account, but you would not want to record that as income. No worries, the system has you covered in both of those cases. Let's scroll down to the deposits log and see some examples. So you can see that for the most part, all of the deposits into the account are being recorded as income. If we take a look at the drop-down menu for categorizing the deposits, we can see that we have 4 options, which are income, and that's your regular income as defined by the CRA. The majority of folks will only have to report this for their business income. Passive income is income from things like rental properties that you own, interest earned on a high yield savings account, investment income, a couple of other specific things. If you have income and you're not sure if it should be categorized as regular or passive income, just shoot me an email or check with your accountant and we can let you know. Internal transfers are transfers in from another account that is associated with your business, such as a savings account, or for example, maybe you take payments through PayPal and you want to move that money into your main checking account. That would be recorded as an internal transfer. The payments into PayPal would be recorded as your income, and then moving the money from PayPal into your checking account would be recorded as an internal transfer. Refunds are exactly what they sound like, any refund for a business expense that you had paid that you ended up getting back. So if we aren't counting internal transfers and refunds as income, why even bother recording them on the sheet? Well, you want your bookkeeping records to match up with your bank statements. So if the CRA does come knocking to do an audit and they see that this transfer of $1,200 into your account was recorded as an internal transfer, then they aren't going to think that it was income that you forgot to report, or worse, were trying to hide from them. And you can see here on the sheet that for anything that is recorded as income or a refund, there are actually a few different amounts filled in here rather than just one, like we see for the internal transfer here. So this column, total, is the number that was actually deposited into your bank account. But that might not be what you charged the customer, or in the case of the refund, what the business had charged you. For income, if the customer had paid by credit card, then there would be a processing fee that was taken off the amount that was deposited into your account. If you didn't account for that processing fee and your business is at the point where you need to be collecting and remitting sales tax, then your total sales numbers would be off, which could get you into trouble. So to make sure that we have accurate numbers, we have the sale amount column here. So this is what you actually charge the customer. We have GST or HST that was collected, if applicable. Same for PST. If it applies to your business, then anything that was charged to the customer will be recorded here. And then the processing fee is over in this column here. And here is some fantastic news for you. You do not need to enter any of these numbers manually. The system will do it for you automatically. All you need to do is enter the date, what the transaction was, what the total was that went into your bank account, and then the system will handle the rest. To make sure that this is done accurately, there are a couple of things that need to be set up on your settings and rules sheet, so let's head over there. The first thing you will need to do is set up your sales tax amounts if you need to collect it. If your business has not yet reached $30,000 in sales in 4 consecutive quarters, then you do not need to charge it. You can either leave these as 0 or blank. If you have reached that threshold, then you will put in whatever the rate is for your province or territory. Now, why are there 2 fields here for GST and HST? One for what's collected from your customers and one for what you have paid on your expenses. This will not apply to most folks, but there are some businesses that are considered 0 rated in that all of their customers are located outside of Canada, so they do not need to charge GST or HST. However, they may still want to register for a GST or HST number to be able to claim back what they have paid on their various business expenses. So depending on on the business, if they're paying a lot of GST and HST on their expenses, they can then claim that amount back, or most of that amount back, and it can add up to significant savings. So depending on the business, they may or may not want to do that. It's a very specific use case, but I personally have had a business like that in the past, so I know it does come up. So that's why I separated it out into 2 lines. So if you were 0 rated, you would put 0 up top, and then you would put your province's GST or HST rate down here. If you are not sure, talk to your accountant. We also have PST over here if this applies to your business. However, if you live in a province that doesn't have PST, or you don't sell any products that PST needs to be applied to, again, you can just leave this as 0 or blank. Otherwise, put in the rate for your province. This sample business is located in BC, so they have 5% for their GST and 7% for their PST. And unfortunately, you can't claim any input tax credits for PST. It's just considered a normal cost of doing business, so we just have the one rate here. The other section of the settings and rules sheet that we want to take a look at right now is down here, and that is our income and deposit rules section. There are 2 important things to set up here. One is how to categorize various deposits, as well as the processing fee that should be applied to them, if any. So in this example, any payments that come in from Stripe should be categorized as income, and they have this as a processing fee applied to them as a percentage, and then there is also a flat rate of 30 cents per transaction that should also be applied to every payment that comes in from Stripe. And then anything that's an e-transfer should also be categorized as income, but there's no processing fee applied. Now, if you have an account where you get charged for every e-transfer that gets deposited into your account, maybe your bank charges you 50 cents or $1 per deposit, you don't record that as a processing fee here. You will record that as an expense, as a bank fee and interest expense. We'll get to that when we get to the withdrawals video, but I just wanted to point that out here just so there wasn't any confusion. You will record that as an expense, but not a processing fee. Hopefully that's clear. So these are our rules that tell the system how deposits from various sources should be categorized, whether that's income. We do have a passive income, as well as an internal transfer and a refund rule set up. So it's going to look for these things in the description section on your deposits log. If it finds a rule that it matches up to, it's going to apply a category for sure, and possibly do a little bit of math to figure out what sales tax was, if applicable, as well as what the processing fee was, if applicable. So let's see this in action. All you're going to need to do is enter the date, the description, and the total that was deposited into your bank account. So you can see the system automatically categorized that as income. It did a little bit of math. It figured out this is what the customer was actually charged. So that's what's going to get recorded as our total sales for our sales tax reporting. This was the amount of GST or HST that was collected. This was the amount of PST, and this was the processing fee that was paid. So all I had to enter was this part, and then the system took care of all of this. And then if we scroll back up to the reporting section, we can now see that we've got some numbers up here that have automatically updated. We now see that our total sales in terms of our regular income was this amount. So we can see that that's not this amount, because that is the sales amount plus the GST plus the PST minus the processing fee. But this is what we would need to report to the government if we were submitting a GST report, for example. And then the P&L statement will have updated. We will now see some income for May if we go and take a look. And again, it's that sales amount, not the amount that was added to the bank account, because that included sales tax, which you don't include as your income when you're filing your personal income tax return at the end of the year. And all of this happened automatically without you needing to do anything else other than enter 3 things down here. Now, some bad news. Credit card processing fees typically vary from transaction to transaction. There are a variety of factors that can make the processing fee higher than what is stated on the company's website, for example. That includes things like what type of card it is, or if it was tapped or swiped in a physical processing terminal versus entered into an online payment checkout on a website. When you look at the pricing pages for credit card processors, they usually state what the fee is with an asterisk that leads to a bunch of small text that explains that what they have as their processing fee is really just the starting point, and then it can go up from there depending on if some of these factors are in place or not. Given that the fee isn't always exactly the same, you may need to do some manual adjustments on some of your credit card transactions on your monthly overview sheets. So let's take a look at a live example. Let's say we made the exact same sale, but the customer paid with a prepaid Visa card instead of a standard one. Prepaid cards always have a higher processing fee. So in this case, even though this hypothetical business made the exact same sale and the payment came in from the exact same processor, Stripe in this case, this number was lower, which means that these numbers are slightly off. No worries, you can adjust them manually once the system has done its calculations. Now you can see the processing fee has updated to be the correct amount. We've got a right sales number, we have the correct GST or HST collected, and as well as PST. Now what happens if there's a deposit that doesn't match up to a rule on the settings sheet? Well, as you can see, nothing happened, so you can manually select your category, and then you can manually fill in your numbers here. And then you can see up top, your totals will have updated for both your total taxable sales as well as what was paid for GST. So that's how to manage deposits that go into your account. Hopefully you can start to get a sense of how, with the automatic categorization as well as all the calculations that happen automatically, the system can really save you quite a bit of time when doing your bookkeeping. If you do accept tips in your business, then there is one more short add-on video that covers how to handle those for this section. But if not, then you can go on to the next section about how to record withdrawals from your business account.